Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. Thank you so much for joining us here in Big Ten After Dark. It's a late one. The NCAA tournament has just decided that they're going to make me stay up as late as possible to recap all these games, but I got my guy Kevin from Bruin Source, the UCLA podcast of the College Huddle, here with me. Kevin, you're what, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock over there? Not too late for you, right?
I'm 10 o'clock. I don't get how y'all do timings in the sports timings in the Midwest and East Coast, man. I really don't. Like when I travel out there and I gotta stay up till 1, 2 a.m. to watch these games. So props to you all who do it because you do it real consistently.
I, I appreciate it. At least somebody recognizes my game here. I mean, I appreciate it. Listen, I was talking to a buddy who moved to California, I don't know, right after college or something like that. And I was talking to him about, watching games. I was like, everybody complains about how like you have to wake up at 9 in the morning to watch games. And he was like, are you kidding me? I go to Cracker Barrel and I'm watching a game while I'm eating pancakes. He was like, how how could it get worse? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty jealous of you now because everything's closed by the time some of these NCAA tournament games end.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially football season, breakfast time and coffee time is the first game, and that's always like the big noon game for us. And then like the day just it's great. I don't know. I'm so used to this, I can't even think about the other side. So
Yeah. No, I, I
yeah.
I do envy you. I'm like thinking to myself, man, what would it be like to do one of these podcasts at 10 o'clock at night instead of 1 in the morning? But
And before we
it is what
start,
it
I
is.
gotta compliment your shirt. We got two,
Yeah,
two two Bruins here. Not talking about UCLA tonight,
there we
but
go.
two Bruins here.
I wish I was on UCLA time, so that's why I had to wear the
There you
UCLA
go.
shirt.
There you go.
All right, well, let's get into these games. Purdue and Houston. Oh man, what a heartbreaker for Purdue in this one. They were down, they came back in the game. Houston's offense couldn't get going, and Purdue climbs their way back into it. Trey Coffin, the huge 3-pointer, absolutely massive 3-pointer by Cam Heide there. It was an amazing shot, amazing job by Braden Smith. Braden Smith just fantastic in this game. What, 15, 14 assists in this one? I have the stats pulled up here. I guess I
15
should look
assists,
at them.
yeah.
15 assists in this game. Only 7 points, but man, they wouldn't have been anywhere close in this game without him. Kevin, I mean, I think most Big Ten fans have a pretty consistent view of Purdue. They don't like them, and a lot of that is because of them being so dominant the past 2 or 3 years. I'm curious, a new perspective. Give us your thoughts on the game, and then you've been a year in the Big Ten. What are just kind of your general thoughts of Purdue after being a year in the Big Ten?
Maybe another year and I'll hate them too. Who knows how that goes? So Purdue was for me as I didn't think that they were going to be as good as they were this year, losing what they lost. But I think being in the Big Ten for the first year and observing, you always know Matt Painter coach teams are obviously going to be very solid. They're going to be, especially offensively, very well disciplined. But watching it up close, kind of on a game by game basis this year, and then when we played them, kind of like all the chess match and stuff that kind of goes back and forth there with Matt Painter team. And I think that kind of came out in today's game right here. It was, I think, two of the great ones in the game going at it between Painter and Kelvin Sampson. Um, Purdue, I thought early on in the game, Fletcher Lawyer was kind of their heart and soul in parts of that first half, kind of keeping them in the game and ahead in different parts of it. Houston's going to be Houston though, and LJ Cryer didn't have it tonight. He again, a lot of that again is Matt Painter, and that was the pawn that he played in that chess match that he's going to try to take him away and see what else could happen all the way, up until that last play. And I think now in the Twitter sphere and stuff, this is starting to come out about how that last play actually unfolded, where Purdue had seen that action many times, and they took away LJ Cryer specifically, which is why the inbounder wasn't guarded and he was there. So you know great game. Purdue, I think, I first off, good seating for them. Indianapolis, home region. That definitely, I knew that coming into the Big Ten that the passion and the pageantry that exists in the fan bases and whatnot. And that definitely was something that came to play. In this game, it was absolutely a factor. I think Houston basically won a road game out there in Indy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the fans were rabid for Purdue down the stretch in that one, and you could feel it coming through the television. And even when Purdue wasn't doing so well, you could feel that there was basically no juice or anything in the fans. So, yeah, it was a home game for Purdue, most certainly. I think they said like what 50 miles away from campus or something like that. So obviously, Purdue fans were going to be able to buy their tickets and get there much more than the Houston fans were. And I mean, going into this game, I heard a lot of people say like Houston fans don't travel. Well, for whatever reason, for whatever it is, they don't travel and they don't have the largest alumni base nationwide, kind of, big in Texas and stuff like that, but not really a nationwide fan base or alumni base. And so that impacts it as well. I do want to talk about, Trey Coffin-Wren in this one, only 14 points, 5 rebounds. He had 4 personal fouls overall in this game. Felt like that fourth personal foul was a little weak. I'm also one to never, really blame the refs. I just think the game happens. You got to deal with what happens. There were some pretty bad calls in this game down the stretch that went against Purdue. So I will give Purdue fans that. I know they get, ticked off with the refs and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, Matt Painter, his ability, his coaching, I don't know if it's ability or just his coaching to be able to get players in and out so much. It was a fantastic job by Matt Painter saving him with that last foul. And then fantastic job by Trey Coffin-Wren. He was still playing good defense. He was still playing hard. Overall, like I have so many good things to say about Purdue coming out of this one. Just that last one, like you said, there was action they hadn't seen before. They guard the other action, and Kelvin Sampson's a really good coach. I don't know what else there is to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, Dracoff and Moran, I thought they made him work for everything that he had to get, and he still got his 14 despite the foul trouble, despite everything. Major respect to that guy. When we played him, he was an absolute problem, and definitely again he likes to play physical, likes to throw the body around, and whatnot. Against Houston, that does go into their hands a little bit sometimes, and how they like to play. But Trey Coffin still found a way to impact the game with, again, Matt Painter doing the offense or defense substitutions and all that fun stuff like throughout the game. The offensive backboard, I think, was a huge story. It's always a story when you play Houston. The offensive backboard is always going to be a big factor. And you look right here, 16-7. So that right there, I think, gets you the close to 10 extra shots that Houston got at the end of the day, and that they only shot 37%, but this is kind of like the Mick Cronin style, right? If you try to win the turnover battle and the rebounding battle, you're going to get so many more X percentage of shots, to where unless you're completely, not shooting away from the team, you're not in the ballpark, you're probably going to win the game. And that's the offensive backboard on aggregate amongst many things, probably won Houston the game tonight. The fact that guys like Trey Coffman and all that were in foul trouble probably helps them in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they just had more shots overall, and were able to capitalize on that. They got to the free throw line less than Purdue did, and with more shots. I mean, I think that just speaks to the offensive rebound and what they were able to do. 5 offensive rebounds for Jawan Roberts, I think is how you pronounce that first name.
Yeah.
He only had 5 points in the game, but adding 5 offensive rebounds to that, and that was something that a lot of people talked about Purdue this season. They didn't have the rim protection, and I definitely saw that, but rebounding was also an issue at times for Purdue this season. Trey Coffin-Wren, a fantastic scorer, great offensive game down low, but he's not the dominant rebounder that you kind of need on this team. And it's unfortunate for him. Daniel Jacobson could have been somebody that could have been that for him, but they lost him earlier in the year. You bring in Caleb First, and Caleb First does a good job being solid for them, but he's not a difference maker on the rebounds. He's not, he's not going to do that for you. 2 rebounds in this game. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. If Purdue can go out and get a dominant rebounder next year, bring back Braden Smith, Trey Coffin-Wren, and some of these pieces continue to play the way they did. Cam Heide, 9 points in this game. Miles Colvin, 7 points in this game. He was 1 for 6 from 3, but he still had that huge steal, had a huge pull-up jumper there late in the game as well. If you can get this kind of play from your role players, I like Purdue next year. Not saying they're going to pick our friend Frank here saying they're going to win the national championship. I don't know about that, Frank, but I do like Purdue next year, especially if they can go out. And I just did a video on him, Oscar Clough from South Dakota State. he's a fantastic rebounder. If you get a guy like that to come in and play the five for you on this Purdue team, might not be the best rim protector in the world, but he's still a big guy that can make a difference. And as we know, Matt Painter gets his hand on a big guy with some talent and some skill. He's going to have other teams in trouble.
Yeah, we've been live for 10 minutes. You've convinced me to hate Purdue for next year. No, definitely. I mean, this group coming back. So Braden Smith automatically is going to make him a top whatever team. I don't know exactly what the number will be. Probably like around a top 10 team, like
Yeah.
just by itself, right? Because college basketball is a guards game, and they're gonna have a good rotation there again next year. You know, Trey Coffin Wren, he comes back. Yeah, I mean, if you add that rim protection, just an overall rebounder, I don't think they need much more scoring. I think they got enough firepower around there to where, but again, it's Matt Painter. I think does like a certain style of player. It'll be interesting. Purdue's got a lot coming back. I mean, not like some of these other teams we're going to talk about here. They got a solid foundation to build on from what already is a Sweet 16 team.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what Purdue can do next year. A team that won't be talking about next year. Oh, I do want to bring up John's chats here in just a second, and then we'll come back. He says Donovan Dent to UCLA is an awesome move. I love that for them. Yeah, John, I was a little salty about that. That news broke that he was committing and that was breaking or whatever. Literally like 15 minutes after I posted a video when I was talking about how he was trending to UCLA. So I guess it makes me look good that I was right, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, we could have let the video, be out for a little bit. Come on, help me out here. But
We'll
it
say
is
you
what it
broke the
is.
story.
Yeah, yeah.
You broke.
How excited are you about Donovan Dent, Dylan Andrews moving on? That's got to be a little bittersweet. Didn't have the best year in the world, but Donovan Dent, I think, gonna be much better for you all next year.
It's funny. College basketball recruiting is just a funny world. And the reason Donovan Dent wasn't at UCLA to begin with was because we took Dylan Andrews in that class, who
Mm-hmm.
was the higher rated player. He was a top 30 player, recruited by the likes of Kansas and Arizona and all that, right? And but he was a local guy. The story goes that Mick Cronin tells Richard Pitino, "Hey, like I really like this guy, though. You should take him." And now it's coming full circle. Donovan Dent, it's definitely a massive statement win.
Mm-hmm.
UCLA's problem this year was guards among a few things, but I think guard play, college basketball is a guards game, as we just said, and the hope was that Dylan Andrews would kind of take that next step from what he was already doing the second half of last year. It didn't quite materialize, and hope it works out for him, wherever he goes. But Donovan Dent, I mean, this is basically throwing money at the problem, and that's life in today's world of college sports. And UCLA absolutely, is one of the haves when it comes to college basketball. So let's take some money and throw it at the problem. And from a recruiting win standpoint, it's a great statement because you're going against the very best in this recruitment of Kentucky and Duke and all that fun stuff. The other side to it, I think the fit is kind of interesting because it's number one player in the transfer portal. Mick Cronin is not necessarily someone who goes with major high usage point guards, and that's what
Right.
Donovan Dent is.
Mm-hmm.
And turnover rates are probably a little higher than what Mick Cronin would like. So these are going to be interesting things to just see what the fit is like. But the talent, I think, is it's undeniable, and it'll help with all the preseason ranking stuff.
For sure. It tells me that Mick Cronin sees that he's coachable, right? He sees that these areas, the turnover rate and stuff like that, but he sees him coming in and saying, okay, he might have these things at New Mexico, but I'm going to bring him in, harness these skills, harness these abilities in a certain way. He's going to play my style, and he's going to be better for it for those reasons. I kind of see that in Mick Cronin a little bit. So we'll see. And then John says he's happy for Kelvin Sampson. Kelvin Sampson, former coach at Indiana. He got shamed, everything else there. I don't think we need to rehash all that. If go to Wikipedia if you don't know what happened there. He could have won at Indiana a lot of games. Yeah, my in-laws, man. I bring that up to him sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, I remember Kelvin Sampson was at Indiana. And they're like, don't remind us. It's like things could have been so much better. So,
Of all
all
the things
right.
that happened in today's world of college sports, imagine texting.
Texting of all things, right? Everything else people get in trouble for now, or don't get in trouble for, I guess, anymore. So it is what it is. All right, Michigan State comes in and beats Ole Miss in this game. Ole Miss jumped on them early. Michigan State definitely didn't win the first half there. Toward halftime, though, things got a little bit more even. I think Ole Miss was up by as much as 10 in the first half, and then Michigan State does what Michigan State does is they come out and they completely win the second half and they take this one over. It was a close game, but down the stretch, I had a lot of confidence in Michigan State to win this one. It was like, oh, it's throwing the ball in and holding on to the ball and hitting your free throws. Okay, this is Tom Izzo's bread and butter right here, right now. Like he's gonna make sure he has these guys coached up and ready to do this, and that's exactly what they did. Padula for Ole Miss did everything he could. I mean, he's a really good player from what I saw. I didn't realize he was that good. A lot of props to him and a lot of props to Chris Beard and this team he put together. But overall, for Michigan State, Jace Richardson, he said it in the post game. He said, "I felt like I owed these guys for how I played against New Mexico," and he brought it back 4 for 6 from 3-pointer in this one, 6 of 8 from field goal on the game, 20 points overall. He was absolutely fantastic, absolutely huge for him. Kevin, your thoughts on Michigan State's win?
So I have two thoughts. The first one, I'm looking at the stat sheet. This actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. 64 attempts to 48, and Michigan State won the game.
Yeah,
Imagine that. You get, what is that, 16 more shots than the
yeah,
other team. Wow. The overall game as it unfolded, actually, like it looked like a carbon copy of the game that we played with Michigan State, where you know, we jumped out to an early lead. Uh, they make their classic Michigan State run. It becomes kind of a rock fight, and we were at home in that game, so we ended up winning in there. But in this case, kind of a rock fight. Michigan State in these big tournament games, you need some guys to just step up and take you home. They have a freshman doing it for him, Jace Richardson, and that's always, it's tough for that to happen on this stage for such a young guy, but he's been great for him all year. And that was always like my question about Michigan State was, when obviously Tom Izzo, the culture, the defense, it's all great and whatnot. When you get in this kind of a game in the tournament, you usually need one or two special players to just kind of carry you through. And, was a freshman going to be able to do that in this stage? The answer is yes. Now, the answer is just yes. Jace Richardson took him over the line at the end. And, very efficient 20 points. Got us 20 off 8 shots in the end. Michigan State was not shooting well early on. Somehow they finished at 50% shooting. And so that tells you kind of how things went in the second half. Kind of your classic Michigan State, Tom Izzo performance in the tournament, really. Somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, like this doesn't make any sense to me as I look at it. And yet they have 3 more points than the other team. And that's how that goes.
Yeah, Ole Miss with 8 steals in this game to Michigan State's only 1, and Michigan State turns the ball over 10 times. Ole Miss did end up turning it over 8 times, but Ole Miss points off turnovers 13 to Michigan State's 10 points off turnovers, and you're exactly right. I mean, Ole Miss had so many more shots in this game, but it was just the efficiency, it was the willpower, it was so many other things of Michigan State that get them the win, and in true Tom Izzo fashion, it was Tom Izzo basketball. The team made mistakes and they got down, but the run came. They held off the storm. They got the lead and they kept the lead until the end of the game there. And I mean, I love it for Tom Izzo. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Tom Izzo, and I get that and everything, but just as a basketball fan, seeing him get the Big Ten record and everything this year, and then seeing him now have this kind of success here later on when so many people thought he was washed. So many people, were after last year were like, he doesn't have front court, he's not using the transfer portal and all this stuff. Comes into this year, I don't know how many games they won when they didn't have the best player on the court, but I would say it was a good amount of them. Jace Richardson is a fantastic player, but he didn't bloom into this player until late in the season. So Michigan State was winning a bunch of games when they didn't even have the best player on the court, and I don't know if that's the scenario here. Jace Richardson was fantastic versus Padula, but still, Michigan State is a team basketball. Yeah, like this is a team winning basketball games. This isn't one player going out there doing it on his own, or maybe one or two players doing this or that on their own. This is a team. This is Tom Izzo getting his guys to buy in, playing plenty of players. The thing that shocked me the most, and then we'll move on probably after this, Kevin. We get your thoughts on it. The thing that probably shocked me the most was Jackson Kohler played 18 minutes in this game, 0 points, 2 rebounds. He did have an assist. He did have a foul. Did have 2 blocks. But still, like if you would have told me Jackson Kohler was going to play nearly 20 minutes in this game and not give you a single point, based off what I knew about this Ole Miss team, I would have said, okay, Michigan State's losing. They had everything against them in this game. Ole Miss out offensive rebounded them. They got more turnovers, or they forced more turnovers than them. But Michigan State finds a way.
There's another stat that is absolutely insane because Kohler is absolutely a key cog in the machine, and to get a donut in 18 minutes and still somehow come out with a win. That the game on it's going to be on Sunday now, right, against Auburn. That'll be a rock fight because I would probably give the early edge to Auburn because of what we just talked about. I think they just got a couple of those special players that if it does get into a tight game that they can take them over the top. But Michigan State. This is Tom Izzo at his finest. I never completely bought the whole he's washed and all that stuff. I mean, college basketball, things can change so fast now. The way it all works, and you get a few of the right guys and under that coach, and this is what can happen. So I think it's gonna be a rock fight. I would give slight edge to Auburn, but it's gonna be there's gonna be blood drawn. It'll be down to the wire, I think. And, I'm going to take a guess. This kind of stat sheet's not going to win them a game against Auburn. Just wild guess. But it'll be a good game.
For sure. Yeah, Michigan State's going to have to be more disciplined and make sure they win in different areas other than, maybe team effort and culture and stuff like that. Gets you the win against Ole Miss, which is fantastic, but you're going to play a lot more smooth basketball against an Auburn team. Speaking of Auburn, they take down Michigan 78-65. This was a game that Michigan led most of the game. I mean, they looked like they were in control of this game. Every time Auburn kind of poked their way back into it, Danny Wolf would make a play or somebody would hit a shot or something would happen. And you would think, okay, Michigan's going to stay out in front in this one. And then came about, I'd say, the 12-minute mark, and it was just downhill for Michigan ever since then. That was kind of when Pettiford started to turn on a little bit more, and Janai Broom started to get more of what he wanted. Denver Jones in this game started to get more of what he wanted at that point, and Michigan just didn't seem to have the firepower, and Danny Wolf didn't continue to have the offense that he had earlier in the game for this Michigan team to stay in it. Good effort by this Michigan team. Vlad Golden was doing some stuff, but he was 2 for 9 from the game, only 6 for 9 from free throw, and they were giving a lot of effort on defense. But to me, this was just Auburn flipping a switch and being like, guys, are we really down? Like, we're better than this. And they finally flipped that switch and they turned it on against Michigan. And unfortunately, Michigan is going home in the Sweet 16. But I mean, it's still a fantastic season for Michigan. 8 wins last year, Sweet 16 this year. But I know Michigan fans are probably hurting after this one.
Yeah, Michigan, I think, is the sign once again of this is how modern college basketball works. You get new coach in, new 7-footers, a whole new roster. The whole thing changes, and they're in the Sweet 16 and had a chance to win tonight. The way the game kind of played out, I think it's exactly what you said. There was about a point in time in the game where I think couple players for Auburn. And again, this is how March Madness goes. Couple players for Auburn. I think that the run was really started by Pettiford and Denver Jones. Denver Jones just started raining a few in there. Then Pettiford did some dancing around. And after that, I think the speed and the quickness of Auburn, I thought, wore Michigan out through the game as it went on. I thought that eventually all that running up and down. And look at the number of, again, you go back to shot attempts here, 71 shot attempts for Auburn in the game. That's going to wear you out. And I thought that's kind of what happened to Michigan. And then once they started to get down, they kind of went to their comfort zone of like, let's try to throw to Vlad Golden. And that's exactly, I think, while he's dominated so many teams this year, that's kind of the game that Auburn wants to play, a very static, very, even if he gets a few points here or there, they got the girth and they got the power to kind of, handle that. So late game, Michigan maybe went away from some stuff that they maybe could have done. And in the end, I thought a fully deserved winner. Auburn's fully legit, and I think fully capable of winning the whole thing.
Yeah, people were concerned about Auburn going into the tournament. I think they had lost 2 of their last 3 or something like that going into the tournament, or 3 of their last 4, something like that going into the tournament. And it's actually something I pointed out in the last episode. There were 3 of their last 6, and I included Alabama State and Creighton in that, thinking to myself, all right, they've lost to Alabama, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Like, Michigan just beat Texas A&M. Michigan does obviously have a chance there. And for most of that first half and into the second half, I was like, Michigan might just do this. Like, they might just keep the lead. I think it would have helped Michigan a whole lot more if they were able to keep it close enough to make it a close game, because Michigan is one of the most experienced teams in close game situations in this entire season. But when I saw Pettiford hit that, step back, and Reuben Jones basically like fell on top of him, I was like, no, this game's over. Like, if you're gonna start hitting that and get the foul and everything, like, there's no way Michigan's able to come back in this one and make it close and try to get a clutch moment from a Trey Donaldson or something like that. Like, the opportunity had to be there, but it just never came because Auburn just kept unleashing on them.
It just felt like there was a 3-minute period where Michigan couldn't grab a defensive rebound. Like, as that was happening, it's just like there that moment when Auburn fell down by 1, and they like kind of got right there, and it was like, all right, they're about to take the lead. Nope, brick, rebound, and it's just like one after another. And it's like, okay, well, eventually this dam's just going to break open, and it broke open. Overall, again, solid year for Michigan. That definitely had the talent, I think, to win tonight, and they were right there with a chance to win. This will be an interesting offseason for them because they do lose a lot of this team that was now. Dusty May's already done the 1 year turnaround thing, so maybe that's the plan again. But this time you're not going to be able to go back and get the same players as last time. You knew Vlad Golden from before. You obviously can't go that way, but definitely like. If he does it this year, definitely I could see Michigan fans having faith that he's going to do really well there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he did it this last year in the portal. He found guys like Danny Wolf and others. Trey Donaldson, I think, was a really good find from Auburn. He's been a little up and down at points this season, but for the most part, he
was
really
against us.
Yeah, he's been a really clutch player. He's come in for you in big moments this season you wouldn't win without him. So, so this Michigan team, just looking at their roster right now, Danny Wolf is only a junior, but I have to believe he probably goes to the NBA after this year. That 7-foot, ball skill type of talent. I mean, the NBA, I don't think they're going to pass up on that. He might come back with some tips of what he can do or something like that if he doesn't feel like he's first round enough, but I have to believe he probably goes. Trey Donaldson is a junior, so he does come back. Namari Burnett, senior, he's gone. Jace Howard, he's gone, but he doesn't play. So who is it? Reuben Jones, he's graduate, he's gone, and then Vlad Golden. So you're losing three starters there for you. Four. Sorry, Reuben Jones, Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden. You're losing 4 starters for you there. Bringing back Trey Donaldson, Will Cheddar, LJ Kaysen, some guys. I don't know if it's enough for me to believe in this Michigan team as much as I am right now, but like you said, Dusty May did it before. Can he do it again? Any thoughts on those guys leaving and the guys coming back?
It's a lot you're losing, and a lot of the key pieces of this year's team. This team felt like it was completely built around the 2 7-footers, and everything kind of like the whole world kind of revolved around them. If you're losing both of them, obviously, like, so many things change. Like I can say when we played them, for example, they were a terrible matchup for us because we, as has been well documented, we refused to play our center for so many portions of the year. And
don't get me started on that, Kevin. I have gone to that enough time.
Don't get me started on that. But because of that, like, Michigan was hard to match up with for a lot of teams, not just us, and that's also why, like, I think that that whole late game, record that they had, and that all the stats that sit behind that. Um, it's going to be tough to replace it, but again, you're basically placing your faith on a coach at this point. If you're losing this much in your roster, you're placing your faith on the coach. And Dusty, I think, did a great job this year. One thing I just tell Michigan fans is like, don't be afraid of needing to take a small step back to build a more sustainable program going forward. It's probably not always the best to keep doing the reloads every single year, and so it's if you gotta stock up on some longer term pieces as a means to not do that, then I think that's okay.
Well, and I think you look at how many teams are in the Elite Eight that they didn't just go into the portal and get a bunch of quick fixes and basically make their roster out of that. I mean, there's a ton of teams that actually developed their talent and did a good job of getting one or two transfers here and there. I mean, we just saw a Houston team, like Houston and Purdue, two teams that basically did that. Now, Purdue didn't take hardly any. I don't think they took a single transfer this past year, so that wasn't that wasn't for them. But Houston only took one, maybe two, I think. So, it's going to be hard for maybe a year or two. Maybe you work on the development, but at the same time, Michigan also had a number of freshmen on the team this year, and if they can continue to develop them, Fat Brooks, LJ Kaysen, stuff like that, that's going to be really important for him. I think Pippen went into the portal, so I don't think he's with the team anymore. But yeah, all right, Kevin, let's get to our final one here, which is Maryland, Florida. We can comment on the game a little bit. I think that we should do that when we're doing a Sweet 16 week recap. But I think the thing people are probably more interested in is the Kevin Willard drama and saga and everything. So I mean, I don't have many overall thoughts in the game. It just was, what these teams did all season basically happened in this game. The starters for Maryland scored a lot of points. Their bench didn't give them hardly anything. Florida got a ton of offensive rebounds, 15 in this game to 7 for Maryland, and Maryland, had less defensive rebounds in this game than Florida had offensive rebounds in this one. It's the exact thing I said. Maryland, you couldn't let happen. They let it happen, and they lose by 16. So, any overall thoughts on the game here, Kevin? Before we talk about Kevin Willard,
My overall thought is if you're going to lose the rebounding battle by 22, then this is going to be the result, and that's just that is what it is. Maryland, again, they got their two. They got Queen and they got Reese, and then behind them they don't have any depth over there, right? And Florida's got a number of guys that they're throwing at the glass. That was always going to be tough for them to match up against, and particularly if Queen and Reese got in any sort of foul issues at any point in the game, then it was going to be tough for them. They kind of survived that. They still didn't survive the glass. My thought when Florida played UConn, they got pushed around a little bit in that game. I thought that might be good for them. They got a little tested to where now they can come out and really show their might, and I think they did. And that's kind of where the game went. Florida's just they got a wave of guards that they can throw at the likes of Gillespie and some of the guys that Maryland had. So it was always going to be a tough matchup for him. And, what happens next for Maryland, it's going to be tough because already they were going to lose a lot from this roster. That probably factored into all the decisions, right, for Kevin Willard and all that. Crazy times that, we're going to the Sweet 16 weeks and we're thinking about coaching changes and things of that nature. And we're here now, so might as well talk about it. It's kind of similar. I don't know if we'll ever hear it exactly, but I wonder if it's a little similar to like when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma to go to SC. And obviously that was all like end of season stuff, but the reasons were actually kind of similar. I think like the portal opens now. These schools got to know what their coaching situation is well in advance, and so under the table in the agent sphere and whatnot, like they're trying to figure that stuff out. Particularly a school that's basketball heavy like Villanova. So that they can get to business, that they can start talking shop with people while the coach finishes up. And for the coach also, he wants to know that he's going to a place where like he's going to have a chance to like remake the roster and all that stuff. So it's I think yet another situation where the recruiting calendar that makes absolutely no sense, and I'm sure that there's some reason that the portal is now just like people got to enroll in school and stuff before. Like I'm sure there's a reason why this is all the way it is. Um, but as long as that's all gonna be this way, like stuff, and I don't like the fact that Kevin Willard did this to his team. I don't like the fact that we're in there. Um, but as long as these extremities exist, like I think we're gonna see more of this stuff. Like it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, my biggest thing with it is like Kevin Willard, like you knew you were doing this or you knew you were talking to Villanova for so much time. Like I got all the respect in the world for Will Wade and what he did. Through that whole thing, I know some people were giving him grief, like, "Oh, you shouldn't talk about that stuff." It's like bull crap. Like talk about it, like tell your players about it. And in today's day and age, like you can take your players with you. So if you believe in your players enough, you're gonna go to them and say, "Hey guys, I'm talking to NC State. If I get the job there, taking some of you guys with me. Like, it's going to be awesome. Let's make it happen. Let's go win the ACC next year. Like, do something like that." Instead, Kevin Willard, like, he's making comments, kind of like backhanding Maryland, and he's being
The
way
athletic
too,
director and all that
in the
stuff.
athletic, like, he's
Yeah,
being way too open about, like, his issues with the school and everything else. It's like, and then John sends me on Twitter. I'm not in Trilly Donovan's like Discord group or whatever, but I don't know if John got it from somebody else or if he's in it or what. But like, he sends me the Discord comment from Trilly where he's like, "Oh yeah, Kevin Willard just decided he's leaving in the past 24 to 48 hours, and it's because of how the fans treated him." I mean, he got booed going out of the team hotel, or was it coming in or going out of the team hotel, one of the two. Um, and it's like, well, no, duh, you're gonna get booed, dude. Like you're literally throwing the program under the bus. You are airing all the dirty laundry. Like you are out here trying to destroy Maryland and their reputation with everything that you're saying. So like, of course they're gonna be mad at you. What do you expect? And also, you get paid millions of dollars. It's okay. You can get booed a little bit. Toughen up. Get some thick skin.
it's funny when the at Michigan State, what's it the football coach? Why am I blanking on
Oh,
his name?
Jonathan Smith.
Jonathan Smith.
Yep.
So Oregon State, obviously, right? They were getting thrown into the out of the major divisions, right? They were getting thrown out of what's now the Power Four, and this was kind of known that whole rivalry week, right? That when they were playing Oregon, that he was probably leaving, he was going to Michigan State. Um, and it's funny because what you said, like he was actually kind of open about that stuff, right? He was like, "Yeah, hey, like this is happening. Like I don't, you all know why it's happening." And just was kind of straight about it. And Oregon State people obviously like hated him for it and whatnot, but I think like the discourse around that was even a little different. It's like, all right, hey, like yeah, this is happening, and like this is why it's happening. Instead of, I think sometimes these coaches when they like, oh well, I didn't speak to them until like 24 hours ago, or I didn't speak to them. It's like, bro, come on. Like we know how this stuff works now. Like it's all common knowledge. Agents talk, right? Like your agent talked to you. That agent, like we all know how this stuff goes. So you can't this whole thing about like, oh, I didn't talk to them. Like that doesn't fly anymore. It never really has, but especially today when like everything is like, disintermediated and whatnot. Like no one buys it. Um, and then the airing of the dirty laundry definitely, I mean, is like we've had coaches do that kind of stuff, and it's like, yo, come on, like if we really want to air dirty laundry, like we can always do this like both ways. So yeah, I mean, not a very gracious way to exit. I think the real like the top reason for like why it's happening now versus it couldn't happen later, I think is all the recruiting stuff like that I think kind of rules the world with all this.
Totally, and it's an issue that has to get fixed at some point. I mean, there's so many issues right now, but like that is 1A needs to be fixed before anything else. Everything with the calendar, recruiting, transfer portal, all this stuff like that has to get fixed here within the next year or two. If it doesn't, we're just going to keep getting more of this, and unfortunately, college basketball is going to lose a lot of fans. College basketball is already in danger of losing a lot of fans because of NIL and player movement and stuff like that. Which I'm glad players are allowed to move more. I'm glad players are making NIL more. It's just gotten to a point where it is completely ridiculous, and there are coaches that, like, look at Indiana. Indiana literally has 0 scholarship players on their I mean, Tucker DeVries. Tucker DeVries is their only player on the roster right now at this point, and it's because everybody has left. Now, they also had guys graduate. It's not like just the entire roster left, but still, there is nobody on that roster that was on the roster last year going to be coming back. And it's kind of a sad state of events. And it is what it is at this point until you get the schedule changed or something else like that to happen. I will say about the Kevin Willard stuff, though, and I made this point in my video when I was talking about it earlier today. The bad news is this is modern day college football. The good news is this is modern day college football. Because guess who just lost today? Who would potentially be willing to hear about the Maryland job? Chris Beard. Chris Beard would 100% listen to the Maryland job. I don't know if he'd leave Ole Miss for it, especially, in the calendar where it's at right now, but he would 100% listen to that job. There's buzz about Buzz Williams from Texas A&M as well. Like, they're using the same agency, I guess, that hired him at Texas A&M. So, as much as, like, yes, it does suck that it's modern college basketball and everything. On the flip side, it's still modern college basketball. Maryland is not, it's not the funeral for Maryland yet. We'll see what their next move is, but on April 1st, when Kevin Willard leaves, they're going to be looked to and say, what's your next move? And if they make the right move, they'll be okay. If they make the wrong move, it's going to be a bad few years.
College basketball, like, things turn like this, right? In today's day and age, like, why are Maryland fans the most upset? Well, they're probably most upset because, like, he's airing all this baggage, and, like, that can like, coaches generally talk with one another, and, like, what one coach thinks is generally what, like, 50 of the rest of them do. That's how this stuff generally goes. It's definitely something that, like, at UCLA we faced, right? And so it's like, if you're a Maryland fan, that's probably what, like, pisses you off the most. It's like, yeah, you're losing your coach and all that, but if you want to go out and get, like, the next big coach and all that, how much of this is now going to be the conversation of, like, hey, is that really as good an opportunity, and so on and so forth. Now, I think highly of Maryland. Like, Maryland as always, I think they've been a power before in basketball. They've risen well. They've built well year after year in the Big Ten, culminating in this year where they had a great season. They absolutely, can recruit in a very strong area, which is, the Baltimore, DC, greater DMV metro area. So there's absolutely, good stuff that you can do at Maryland. But if you're a Maryland fan, that's probably what pisses you off the most. Like, yeah, you're losing your coach, but, like, when you shit talk the school as a coach, like, that stuff spreads in not a good way into coaching fraternity.
Yeah. I mean, I know when Chris Holtmann left Ohio State, like, there was a coach that was thinking about going to Ohio State, and Chris Holtmann got in his ear and said, "No, you don't want to go there. The fans suck." Like, it happens. Like, there are coaches in college basketball. I don't think it's so much in football, maybe a little bit, but there are definitely coaches in college basketball that will choose not to go to a school because of the way the fans act and the way the fans are, which, maybe it's because you're a little bit closer to the fans, on the court, whatever else. I don't know exactly why that's the case, but, it is what it is. And, once you start realizing that, like, I don't know, not what every person posts on Twitter matters, but it can start to matter. And that's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. I mean, we've had that very situation just happen to us in basketball a couple of times where it gets out in the coaching world. Like, UCLA, they're way too unrealistic with their expectations. They fire Final Four coaches, and it's like, okay, like, if you look 5 years later after your Final Four, are you still doing well, right? And and all this stuff. And coaches, again, they don't think very broadly about this stuff. They're thinking about their program, and they're thinking about their stuff. And then beyond that, the world really doesn't really exist. And they're just kind of talking with one another. And so that's why these opinions get really fickle. So yeah, but I think Maryland will be fine. They lose a lot from this team. They were already going to lose a lot from this team. Obviously, they got a one and done, and then the likes of
Reese
Gillespie.
and Miguel. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Gillespie will be back, but yeah, Miguel.
If he doesn't hit the portal, apparently Tennessee and Kentucky are offering him big money, but we'll see.
Well, now they're going to lose their coach, so yeah, maybe they'll have zero scholarship players next week. Who knows?
Apparently the rumor is that Kentucky wanted Donovan Dent, and if they didn't get Donovan Dent, they were gonna use that money to pay Gillespie. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I mean, I could see that
Yeah.
between Don Thomas and Gillespie, that'd be a good fit for some of the
Yeah.
big fish out
But
there.
maybe they don't now because Gillespie, had 17 points in this game, but outside of that, he had 3 turnovers, fouled out, and 2 steals, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. Maybe they saved him. I don't know. We'll see. All
Who
right,
knows?
Kevin, that's all I got. I appreciate you being here. Anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here?
No, thanks for having us on, and look forward to coming on next time. I know it's now 1:40 in the morning for you.
Yeah. I'm going to
Yeah,
post this podcast and go right to bed.
I am too, but it's 10:40 for me.
Yeah, you'll be waking up at a decent time. All
All
right.
right,
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for being
thank you.
here. Thank you, everybody who watched live, participated in the chat. Wasn't able to show every single chat, but we appreciate you all being here. And if you're listening on podcast, we appreciate you as well. Please do like, subscribe, do all those things here on YouTube. 5-star review, everything there on the podcast. It helps us out a lot. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Have a good one.